Hi, everyone. It is 7 o'clock my time. I hope you all are doing well. My name is Maquiba Reese, and I'm so happy to be here. I serve as the first vice president for the NAACP, and we have an amazing event for you. And I just want to basically say voting is extremely important, and there's a lot of reasons why voting is important. And so before I get into the formal welcome, I just want to say voting is important, period, with a T at the end. Okay. It's just important to get involved with. And I think that the main reason why it's so important is because not only is as it relates to the NAACP, our issues as we focus on Black voters and people of historically marginalized communities, we take up a lot of space in the community. And so we just got to make sure that our candidates listen to us, whether they like it or not. And we're here. And so I'm hopeful that the candidates make sure that they take in note that we are present and we're listening and we're holding you accountable. And so it might be challenging, but don't shy away from us as we are living our own experiences, our lived experiences. So a couple of things that the voting can help out with is basic things as pick up trash, broken street lights, all the things that kind of go along in the community. So we want to make sure our representatives hear us, know who we are, and make sure that they take us seriously. So voting is extremely important. And to the candidates, I want you to know that there might be moments when you are uncomfortable and you are pushed and you are asked to do certain things for marginalized communities. Listen to us. Don't shovel us away because we're not going anywhere. So make sure y'all listen to us and we will be showing up at as many things as we can. And so with that being said, I'm so happy that everyone is here and we're looking forward to hearing our candidates. And the candidates, please make sure that don't shy away from the questions, especially like racial questions. Don't answer it. We want to hear from it, okay? We want to know what you really feel, okay? So we just want to thank our sponsors. We thank Brown County Chamber of Commerce, Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce, shout out to the home team, Hoosier Action, Indiana Coalition for Public Education, Monroe County, Kappa Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, League of Women Voters, Bloomington, Monroe County, League of Women Voters, Brown County, Monroe County NOW, which stands for National Organization for Women, in the NAACP Monroe County National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and the South Central Indiana Citizens Climate Lobby. Give a huge shout out to CATS for recording this. This is recorded and it will be available. And next up, I'd like to introduce Sunny Learcamp, who is a co-vice president of the League of Women Voters, Brown County. And Sunny is absolutely amazing. I was able to hear her last night in her moderation. So I'm super excited to hear you moderate this again. So thank you again. Once again, my name is Maquiba Reese, and I serve as the first vice president of NAACP. Full-time, I work at the IU Kelley School of Business as an associate director. Thanks.
Maquiba, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Just a little bit of my background. I spent 16 years serving as the elected prosecuting attorney for Hamilton County before moving to Brown County in 2012. I continue to do a little bit of work as a special prosecutor on occasion and as a member of the board of directors for 2 international not-for-profit organizations. This evening, I'm appearing in my capacity as co-vice president of the Brown County League, which is a co-sponsor of this event. Welcome to everyone. We are so glad that you are taking the time to observe this forum, which is an opportunity for you to become familiar with candidates that are running for districts 46, 60, and 62 for the Indiana House. And I do want to make sure that everyone knows that all of the candidates were invited to participate in this forum. Curtis Cummings and Penny Giffens are actually participating with us tonight. The League of Women Voters, I want to make sure and point out, is a nonpartisan organization. We do not support or oppose political parties or candidates. We provide voters with candidate information through newspapers, the online voter guide Vote 411, and candidate forums like this one to help people get to know candidates' positions on issues. I'd like to kind of go over some of the rules that we're following before we begin the actual questions and opening statements. Each candidate will be asked to give a 1-minute opening statement. Then that will be followed by a series of questions. We will conclude our round of questioning with each candidate giving a 1-minute closing statement. The order of the questions will alternate, so no candidate always answers first. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question. The time limit will be stated when each question is asked. Please monitor the clock visible in gallery view. When there are 10 seconds remaining, we ask the candidates to please finish your sentence and conclude your answer. When time is expired, a candidate may be interrupted and asked to conclude. We will begin with opening statements alphabetically. So this means, Curtis, you will be giving the first opening statement, and recall that you have 1 minute for that, please.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this on this evening. I'm very happy to be participating. I've never ran for office before. This is my first time. I've been a community leader for a while now, and I really enjoy. I'm so sorry that as with Zoom, we have dogs. I decided to get into politics because I believe that we should get big money out of politics. I do not believe that corporations or PACs should, I'm so sorry. I don't believe that corporations or PACs should actually have any say in what our state legislature does in terms of representing ordinary Hoosiers. And unfortunately, that's been going on a little too long. And that's why with my campaign, I've made a promise to not accept any type of corporate PAC money whatsoever.
Sorry, thank you very much, Curtis. Penny, we will now turn to you, and you have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone. I want to start by thanking the League of Women Voters and all of the other sponsors for hosting this evening's forum. I'm Monroe County Commissioner Penny Githens and a candidate for the Indiana House of Representatives in District 62. Being a county commissioner is a challenging and a fulfilling position, but I'm running because there are issues that I care deeply about, things that I can't work on as a commissioner. These are things like better support for public education in our rural schools, expanded treatment for those with mental illness and substance use disorders, reproductive rights, pay equity, increased childcare options for hardworking Hoosiers, and a lot of other things. But having served as a county commissioner, I also know what a deep responsibility it is to be an elected official, and I take that obligation very seriously. So I look forward to sharing some of my accomplishments and legislative goals with you this evening, and I hope to convince you that I'm ready to get started on the day I'm sworn in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Penny. We are now going to move into the questioning section of the forum. And I will remind you that you have 90 seconds to answer each question. Penny, we will be starting the first question with you. What do you see as the government's leadership role in addressing reduction of carbon emissions? Please give 2 or 3 examples.
So I think there are things at the state level that we could be doing very quickly. I would love to see us develop commuter rail system in and around Indianapolis, especially, but throughout the state as a way to help reduce carbon emissions. I think that we could be doing some very low cost things like declaring certain lanes on our highways as high occupancy vehicles lanes. That just is a matter of a little bit of paint, I think. I also would like to see us reinstitute net metering, which I think it was unwise to take away. We could be providing incentives to businesses and to local, to individuals to install either wind or solar power. So there are a lot of things that at the state level we could be doing to reduce carbon emissions.
Thank you very much, Penny. And Curtis, you will now have the same question and also up to 90 seconds to answer. What do you see as the government's leadership role in addressing reduction of carbon emissions? Please give 2 or 3 examples.
Well, I think that the federal government certainly has the ability of kind of leading the charge on this, but we can't just rely on the federal government to do that. The state level governments need to take it into their own hands to provide incentives for things such as electronic vehicles, hybrid vehicles. My wife and I just purchased our first hybrid vehicle and I absolutely love it. Nothing like having 38 miles per gallon in the city. And not only are you reducing the carbon footprint, but you're also creating jobs. And these are good paying jobs that are in that technology sector. There's a lot of really great technology coming out of Purdue and Crane that deals specifically with large capacity batteries that could theoretically one day even power trains by having essentially large batteries as part of the locomotive. I agree with Penny as well that I've looked at solar for my own home and for my business. And I think that the work that was done to unravel net metering was largely due to, big money in politics getting in the way of advancement and protecting our environment.
Sunny, we can't hear you. You're muted. And also, I'm not seeing the timer up on the screen.
The timer should come up once the question is given to the candidate.
Okay. All right.
So hopefully you'll see it displayed. Okay, Curtis, I'm sorry about that. The next question is, what role does the state legislature have in leading economic development? Can you give examples? And again, you have up to 90 seconds to answer.
Absolutely. This is a question near and dear to my heart. As a small business owner, someone that started his small business out of a 2-car garage, we leaned heavily on the resources of the ISBDC, the Indiana Small Business Development Center through Ivy Tech. They provided invaluable resources from business plan revisions and reviewing to helping us access grant money and navigating the SBA. The state has so many amazing resources that they can work hand in hand with individual counties in order to provide economic incentives to drive small business, but also to attract larger business that may provide more tech sector jobs. I really believe that anybody has the opportunity to become an entrepreneur. They just got to get plugged into the right resources and be able to find those resources easily. I do see that there's a lot of barriers to entry, specifically revolving around different types of races and different economic backgrounds. So anything that the state can do to help reduce some of those barriers to entry, I think would help every community.
Okay, thank you very much, Curtis. Penny, we will now be turning to you with the same question. I did want to ask you, while Curtis was giving his answer, did you see the timer?
Yes, I did. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
That question again is, what role does the state legislature have in leading economic development? Can you give examples? You have up to 90 seconds.
Yes, one of the biggest things that any government can do to increase to lead on economic development is to provide infrastructure jobs. That's not only roads and bridges, but it's our dams, it's our airports, it's expanding where we have internet throughout the state. That's a big way to make a big difference in people's lives. But the other thing that we need to be worrying about is bringing people to Indiana and keeping people in Indiana who are well educated. We are seeing a brain drain out of Indiana from the people that we educate. And so I think that we have to stop and say, okay, are there state policies that are driving people out? There's a young woman who grew up down the street from me who's finishing a PhD in biology in Colorado, and she would be wonderful to have back here because of the way her work would impact farming, for example. And she won't come back here during her childbearing years. And that's because of the recent policies that the state has passed. And so I think we need to start to say, okay, what keeps people here and what drives people away? And so those are things that I would like to work on.
Thank you very much, Penny. Penny, you will be answering the next question first. And that question is, what is your view on the legislature's role regarding public education in terms of quality and funding?
First of all, we don't fund it nearly well enough. We need to bump that up. We also need to, I think, start to provide universal pre-K for all 4-year-olds. There's a real problem right now, and there's a sort of a dearth of childcare available to families. And we know that there are families who are not back in the workforce because they can't find good quality pre-K for their kids. I have a master's in educational psychology. And one of the things that really bothers me is that we keep testing kids throughout the state, and we have no measure on reliability and validity of those tests. And so while we increase their stress levels and the teachers' stress levels from what we're doing, we've never examined whether or not these tests are the kinds of things that tell us what we need. I also would like to see us, if we're going to test, use those as a way to improve the educational outcome for each child as he or she is tested, so that if a child is doing well in reading but not in math, we take that into account with the kind of math instruction that's offered to that child. So I also think that we need to provide different kinds of funding or additional funding to rural schools. They have different costs when it comes to transportation. And we also need to make sure that we're offering the kind of education that people in rural areas want with farm-facing programs.
Thank you, Penny. Curtis, now we will turn to you with the same question, and you will also have 90 seconds to answer. What is your view on the legislature's role regarding public education in terms of quality and funding?
The legislature drives the ship. It sets the tone for what we're communicating to our educators, to our administrators, to our school psychologists and support staff. If you're not getting the support of the state legislature, then I mean, there's a reason why we have so many open education jobs right now. And it's a culture-based problem. And that culture starts at the state level. It starts with our elected leaders. That just full stop. I have a lot of friends that are educators. I work within the schools in my capacity as a volunteer CASA here in Monroe County. We are not providing the funding or resources needed to take care of our kids. And burnout is a symptom of not being heard. Burnout is a symptom of not feeling that your position is taken professionally. And that's what I've heard from educators. And that is something that the state that at the state level we have to get behind. And as a father of a soon-to-be 5-year-old, I agree wholeheartedly with Penny that childcare is one of our family's largest costs. And I feel that for those families that are marginalized or do not have the resources, yeah, it makes life much more difficult.
Curtis, thank you very much for your answer to that question. We will now move on to the next question, and you will be answering first this time. We're turning to the topic of elections. What measures do you support to improve and secure elections and voting access in our state?
For one, we need to make it easier to register to run for office. I know I'm kind of going aside here, but I consider myself to be fairly educated. I have a vehicle, I have resources, I know how to use the internet, but it was incredibly difficult to actually even file to run for state for this position, state representative. We have the technology in order to make this a lot easier. And I believe that we should eliminate all barriers to encourage eligible voters to vote. I think that the minute that someone turns 18, they should automatically be registered. And that should allow them to go to the polls and go vote. I know there's been some communication, some talk about day of registration, and that worries me just a little bit, just because I don't feel like we have the infrastructure to support that. Poll workers are already difficult to find. It's difficult to find volunteers to work in the polls. But if we had the infrastructure in place, day of registration would be a great thing. So yeah.
Thank you, Curtis. Penny, now I will turn to you with the same question. What measures do you support to improve and secure elections and voting access in our state?
Well, first, if we had all mail-in ballots, we would get greater participation. That's what they've seen in other states that have done this. And the technology exists so that it's not a problem. It doesn't create kind of invalid voters, as it were, because of the way we can now look at signatures and use technology. And it would save money. It's estimated it would save at least $6 million per election to go to strictly mail-in ballots. I would like to see no excuse mail-in ballots if we're not going to go to all mail-in ballots. I think election day should be a holiday so that people don't have to take time off of work, don't have to scurry around, worry about transportation, childcare costs. So I think that would be important. I would actually, if we stay with sort of this current system, I would actually like to see Sunday afternoon voting the 2 Sundays prior to election also. I think we have in Indiana good election security at this point. I'm really happy that by 2024, we will have a paper trail for all ballots, but I would like to make sure that the systems that we have in place are 100% accurate and that they're tested on a regular basis for that.
Thank you very much, Penny. And I will turn the next question to you first. What do you see as the major social and racial inequities facing people in our state, and what would you propose to address them?
Oh, there are inequities in, so many things. Food deserts, education, maternal and child health, access to health care. Boy, the list is kind of long at this point. Access to transportation. I think with the passage of Senate Bill 1, one of the small things that was done was to say we'll put a little extra money into maternal health, But that's just going to be a drop in the bucket, so that I want to see a lot more put into the kinds of programs that make a difference. Another thing that I'm really big on that I think also cuts across a lot of social and racial divides is the stigma and the lack of treatment for mental illness and substance use disorders. And so those things need to be dealt with in a very down-to-earth, pragmatic way. When I was growing up, there used to be a whole system, a network, as it were, of hospitals for the treatment of people with mental illness. I don't want to go back to the old way that we treated people, but I would really like to see a greatly expanded treatment system for people with mental illness and substance use disorders.
Thank you, Penny. Curtis, I will now turn to you with the same question and up to 90 seconds to answer. What do you see as the major social and racial inequities facing people in our state, and what would you propose to address them?
I would say that one that I see over and over again, especially in our community, would be that of affordable housing and single family homes. I think that it's become even more difficult to attain that American dream, to own your own home. And I see it with service industry workers. I see it with people of color. I see it with those who are wanting to immigrate to our country. The state has the ability of making it easier for people to, like, there are plenty of people out there that would be great homeowners. They could easily afford it. They have good jobs, but the existing credit system that we have, the requirements that are set in place from the state level, from the federal level, make it really difficult. And for what folks are paying for an apartment, they could be paying less for a single family home. And I think just gaining access to that and making it easier would be one of my top priorities.
Thank you, Curtis. The next question I will direct to you first. What should Indiana do with its budget surplus?
Well, I guess instead of giving I voted stickers to everyone, we could give everyone a cookie, because the thing is, we're not making any more money with it just sitting there, not with the rate of inflation. With a $6 billion surplus, it is laughable what we are saying to our educators and to our mental health professionals and to our nurses after one of the most difficult 2 years of their professional careers. In fact, for a lot of nurses, it will be, and physicians, I guess, it would be considered to be like the defining moment of their career. And I feel that with the state sitting on this money, and we're not investing in our future, we're not investing in rural healthcare. It's just laughable. And it's, you know, I get people that will ask me while I'm door knocking, they'll say, you know, well, I just heard it today, just 2 hours ago. So someone said, well, there's not much that you can do as a state representative. And I said, well, that's just not true at all. I said, you know, the state's got $6 billion and there's a lot of things that we can do with that money. And I do think that saving some money for a rainy day is a very good idea. I don't discount that whatsoever. And having that high credit rating is great, but we have to support our educators and our kids and the Hoosiers that are most at risk.
Thank you, Curtis. Penny, I will now turn to you with the same question. What should Indiana do with its budget surplus?
I have a very, very long list, Sony. So I don't think we have time for all of it. But first of all, we have to put more money into education. We need to ensure that our teachers are better paid to retain them. We need to, as I said earlier, direct some additional money to rural schools. But we also have to look at what we're doing with our with Ivy Tech, with our state-sponsored universities, and also put more money toward them. But we need to be worried about renewable energy. We need to worry about our roads, although right now we've got federal money coming in through the American Rescue Plan Act to help with some of the infrastructure needs. We need access to healthcare, and access to healthcare will mean not only training, but keeping healthcare providers here in the state. We know that as people come out of college or training, that oftentimes they have debt. And so I think one of the ways that we could incentivize keeping well-trained people here, especially our teachers and our healthcare workers, is to help them pay down their student debt for each year that they are here in Indiana. And I think that would be especially useful if we gave bonuses to people that went into rural areas. So because where there's more of a problem, we could also, as Curtis was saying, provide incentives for first-time home owners to help them get over that gap.
Thank you very much, Penny. And the next question will go back to you to answer, Penny. What are your priorities regarding access to guns and gun safety? How would you address the issues of school safety, suicide, and public safety?
First of all, I think we need common sense gun laws in our state. No one, in my mind, needs a military level assault rifle. No one in my mind needs military ammunition clip. We don't give people full access to tanks and grenades and things like that. So I really think that we need to pull back on this. We need to repeal permitless carry. I don't believe that necessarily people with guns stop other people with guns. We saw in Uvalde that well-trained, armed people did not make a difference at Uvalde Elementary School. The same thing in Florida at Marjorie Stoneman. I'm going to say the name of the school wrong, sorry, but we need to say, no, we don't have to arm our SROs in this school. We need better background checks, full background checks. We need to make sure that we have substantial waiting periods, because one of the things that happens is with domestic violence, people will go out and buy guns. With regard to suicide, guns are the leading cause of death for children 10 through 18. And we need to make sure that guns are safely stored and that families are responsible for what happens with the guns in their home.
Thank you, Penny. Curtis, I now turn to you with the same question. What are your priorities regarding access to guns and gun safety? How would you address the issues of school safety, suicide, and public safety?
I appreciate this question a lot because I grew up in a family that used guns to hunt. I was a member of a conservation club growing up, and I went through the DNR hunter education program. I am a gun owner myself. I have a concealed carry permit. And for my district, it's largely rural. And with the shortage of public safety officials, it may take upwards to 30 to 45 minutes to an hour for a first responder to arrive to like a scene of a home invasion or something. So I am pro Second Amendment for the responsible gun ownership. And I do believe that the vast majority of gun owners are responsible. However, I think it's completely insane that I cannot legally serve a beer to someone that is under 21 years of age at my brewery. But by God, that same person can go to Rural King and buy an AR-15. And that is insane to me. We have easy things in place to we can raise the age to 21. We could move a AR-15 style weapon into the world of needing a tax stamp in order to obtain it. There are things that are already in place that we can easily manipulate to make our school safer, to make our family safer. I'm sorry, I could go on for this one for another like 5 minutes because it is near and dear to my heart, and I feel for. I will wrap up with this. I feel for, people like my daughter who are about to go into school. She's going to be a kindergartner, and I have friends that have 2 and 3 year olds that are having nightmares because of active shooter drills, and that's insane. We should not be traumatizing our kids like that.
Curtis, thank you very much. I will now ask you to answer the next question. What is your view on the state government's role regarding an individual's right to privacy and autonomy regarding reproductive health care?
Oh, yeah. We all fought so hard during SB1, and I feel like it's caused a lot of burnout for Democrats because it was a hard fight. And just to get, the topic kind of slapped in our face by our governor for signing the bill into law hours after it was sent to his desk. But listen, no woman plans on having an abortion. It's certainly not on a bucket list somewhere. But with 520 menstrual cycles in her life to try to navigate, that's 520 potential chances to become pregnant. We really need to focus our time, money, and resources on supporting, streamlining, and making adoption and access to birth control and sex education more affordable for all. The State House has the unique ability to truly affect the daily lives of Hoosiers. This goes into not just a woman's right to choose, but it also goes into we're healthcare providers are being weaponized by the state. Healthcare is a right protected under the Constitution, and everyone should have access to healthcare and decide what to do with their body. And when I was watching the entire testaments of SB1, it was disheartening to see that the separation of church and state was not occurring within our own state house, because I support people of other religions to make that choice if they decide to. So,
thank you, Curtis. Penny, I will ask you the same question. What is your view on the state government's role regarding an individual's right to privacy and autonomy regarding reproductive health care? I think you're muted.
All right. Yeah, sorry. I think Senate Bill 1 has made women second-class citizens. I think it has deprived us of our right to bodily autonomy. But there's so much more that goes with this. There are other areas that need supporting. We need age-appropriate sex education that is research-based. We need full and complete access to either free or inexpensive birth control. We need to be worrying about the types of healthcare that we provide. I think what's going to happen now is, if Senate bill is not overturned in the courts, and I hope it will be, that there will be women who die because of seeking an illegal abortion. And it will create a class system. Earlier we talked about racial and social divides. People without means will be forced to carry a pregnancy. People with means will leave the state and have an abortion. And I think that that's wrong. I think under our Indiana Constitution that there's supposed to be equal treatment under the law. That all laws are supposed to apply equally. And this law will not apply equally to people that don't have means. So there's a lot that goes into this. There's going to be a lot of childcare costs that go with this. There was no fiscal impact study that was done with it. Meaning FISCAL, fiscal type studies that was done with this to look at all the implications of this particular bill. But I absolutely support a woman's right to make decisions about her own body.
Thank you very much, Penny. And I will ask you to be first to answer the next question. What will you do to bring the federal government, state government, and the private sector together to address the damage caused to our infrastructure, our agricultural sector, and our economy in general because of severe weather events and warming temperatures?
Well, I don't know if I can really talk the federal government into doing anything, Sunny, but when we were talking about some of the climate change issues, I think that we need to understand that if we enact those now, it will reduce the need to create this kind of collaboration that you're talking about. But as Curtis also pointed out, we can create good paying jobs that will bring the private sector in as we work on these things. But I was especially, well, I've been watching what's going on because of Hurricane Ian down in Florida. And I think that this is an example of what you're talking about with what can happen with severe climate and weather kind of problems. We learned through COVID that we hadn't planned things very well. We did not put into place the kind of planning that would allow us to react to things. And I think we need to start to work right now between the federal government, the state government, and the private sector for how we will react to these severe things that you're talking about, the things that come about with climate change, whether it's increased rain, whether it's drought, or if it's extra tornadoes. We can invest some now or invest a lot more later. So we need to start right now.
Thank you very much, Penny. Now, Curtis, I turn to you with the same question. What will you do to bring the federal government, state government, and the private sector together to address the damage caused to our infrastructure, our agricultural sector, and our economy in general because of severe weather events and warming temperatures?
I just read an article recently that by 2053, almost all Indiana counties will be part of a new extreme heat belt that the West is already experiencing. It is right in front of us. And I feel like this topic is right on top of the same lines as getting the COVID-19 vaccine, that we're just not listening to science. We're not. Now, there are some of us that are, certainly. But I think that until real significant change occurs, and by that I mean the climate, which then it might be too late, that people won't listen. I think the one thing we can certainly do is start bringing in new generations into politics. You know, people like me, I'm 35, and I decided to run for state representative because I just decided to run for something. There are so many open seats. And I think that if we had more younger folks getting into politics where, you know, we're going to be inheriting this earth, I want to pass it on to my daughter, and I hope it's better for her than it was for us, and it's not any worse.
Thank you, Curtis. I will now ask you the next question first. And that question is, how will you work to increase job opportunities for your constituents? And what do you see as jobs of the future?
So especially in District 46, again, it's so rural. I was door knocking earlier tonight, and I was talking to a gentleman, and he asked, "Where's all the technical trades, training at? Where's the shop class in school?" I, for one, am a testament of that. I, in high school back, I graduated high school in 2005, And it was pretty much shoved down our throat that we needed to go to college. You have to go to college. And I did. I went to college for 1 year before I fell in love with firefighting and EMS. And I went to paramedic school, which is a 2-year technical program. And, there are so many technical jobs that are available right now that we're just not providing the training for. Ivy Tech certainly is a good catalyst for that. And I think that, creating more funnels, directing students, targeting these students that, don't have any interest in going to college, but they do have a big interest in welding, or maybe they have a big interest in electronic technology. I think that you're going to see more HVAC, plumbers, electricians, these type of apprenticeship jobs where they can start in high school, catch the bug, and then make a good quality living off of it. That's what I would do for the constituents of District 46.
Thank you, Curtis. Penny, now I'll turn to you with the same question. How will you work to increase job opportunities for your constituents? And what do you see as jobs of the future?
Well, I think we need to be working with employers to ask them what they see as their needs in the future. In Ohio, they went out and surveyed different employers. And one of the things that they found was that they needed to be training people who will climb the utility poles, right? So they put that in the equivalent of their Ivy Tech schools. And I remember driving past one day and watching the students learn to go up what is essentially an old-fashioned telephone pole. But we need to have our trade schools. We know that more plumbers and electricians are leaving the field than are entering it. So we need to make sure that we fill those. We need to take on an attitude of lifelong education. It may be that we offer skill training that goes in a 6-week or an 8-week training so that people aren't out of the labor force for a long time. We know that technology is going to change. We know that we also, with robotics, we may be looking at, instead of having a 35 or 40-hour work week being considered full-time, maybe we shift down to 30 hours a week because the productivity has increased so much. So I think that there are things like that would make a difference. I think also if we would repeal right to work, it would make a difference to the kinds of salaries that people might be eligible for. And when we talk about good jobs, I think that feeds into it.
Thank you, Penny. And actually, your last comments kind of segue into the next question, which you will go first. What do you consider a living wage? And how would you work to achieve a living wage for your constituents?
Oh, well, a living wage should allow you to have your own living space, I feel. You should not be, you should be comfortable knowing that if something hits out of the unexpected, that you can absorb that bump. Too often we have families that make decisions about whether or not to eat or get their medicine. I've been talking with people at New Hope for Families, and the 3 main reasons that families become homeless are birth of a child, healthcare costs, or loss of a job. So that if we would take care of healthcare in a different way, which would probably, be something that would have to be done at the federal level, we could reduce people's overall costs on a regular basis. Sorry. Their living wage, I would bump it up immediately across the state to $18 an hour, and then I would have something in place that would look at what the local cost of living is, because we can look at an average mean income for each area. And in fact, the Indiana Institute for Working Families has that for each county. And we could go county by county. We know we live in that District 62 covers one of the most expensive areas to live in the whole state.
Thank you, Penny. Curtis, I'll turn to you now with that same question. What do you consider a living wage, and how would you work to achieve this for your constituents?
Well, I can tell you right now, it's not $7.25 an hour, which is what the current minimum wage is in Indiana, and $2.13 an hour for tipped wage workers. At my brewery, Switchyard Brewing Company, we have already implemented we got rid of tipping completely 1 year ago. We don't accept tips whatsoever within the tap room, and we pay every single staff member at least $15 an hour. And we do that because it's my responsibility it's the employer's responsibility to pay their staff, not the customer's responsibility. And as long as the state has that $7.25 per hour minimum wage, there will still be employers that will still pay that. There will certainly still be tipped service workers that will still make $2.13 an hour. But just, as we were talking, I pulled up the living wage calculator from MIT, and in Terre Haute, Indiana, 2 adults, 1 child, the living wage is $15.32 an hour. Here in Bloomington, it is $16.47. Again, that's 2 adults, both working with 1 child. It's even at $40,000 a year salary, you're not able to qualify for a single family home right now in Indiana. So I would immediately request and write legislation that would increase our state minimum wage, and take a look at either eliminating or drastically increasing the tipped minimum wage as well.
Curtis, thank you very much. And the next question will go to you to answer first. How should schools teach history of slavery, racism, and inequities? And what is the government role in this?
The fact that we even have to ask this question is, history is history. It needs to be taught, regardless of, what a parent might think, or regardless of what the government might think. Our history is our history. It's human. I mean, it's what we've all lived through. It's what our ancestors have lived through. It teaches us how to live our life for the better. And, the state sets the curriculum, and teachers, our public educators, our educational professionals, they are professionals. They are not there to corrupt your children. They are there in the hopes that they will go on to do bigger and better things that they ever could. And I mean, that's the whole concept of being a parent, right? Is that you hope that your child will go on to do bigger and better things than you ever could in your entire life. And we need to trust our educators that they are, supporting our future, that they are providing the resources that they need to succeed in their future life. And it's just, nothing should be hidden from them.
Thank you, Curtis. Penny, I would ask you now that same question. How should schools teach history of slavery, racism, and inequities? And what is the government role in this? I think you're muted.
Sorry. I think that we should teach the truth and teach it in an age-appropriate manner. Honesty is always the best way to deal with situations. I think if we teach the truth, we start to understand how race has operated to bring about the inequalities that we see in too many instances here. so that I don't believe that we should be hiding things. But I think that we should also say that the state legislature, was bringing in critical race theory and acting as though this was a real problem in Indiana. And it's not taught in a single K through 12 school. In fact, generally it's a course that's taught in law school. So it's not even taught in our universities on a regular ongoing basis. So let's just describe what has happened, describe what the outcome of that has been in terms of our own history, and how that can lead us to become better people.
Thank you, Penny. I would now pose the question to you, Penny. What role should the Indiana legislature take in supporting preschool and childcare?
Oh, I think you wrote this for me. I have, since I started this race, I have said that I think that we should provide universal pre-K for all 4-year-olds in our state. And I think that should be done in the school by qualified, well-trained, properly paid teachers. Michigan has a program called TriShare to help with the cost of childcare. This is an innovative pilot program right now, but the state pays for 1/3 of the cost of childcare. The employer pays for 1/3 of the cost, and then the family pays for 1/3 of the cost. And what we saw pre-pandemic locally here in District 62 was that assistant teachers for early childhood were making less than $10 an hour. And a lot of these individuals have left the profession because they can go someplace else to earn a lot more. So I think that if we could institute something where it's a collaboration between the state, the employer, and the family, we could boost how much is paid for the childcare, thereby allowing us to increase what we pay the teachers, the head teachers, the assistant teachers, and improve the quality of outcomes for kids. Also, good pre-K has a lot of lifelong benefits for the child. So thank you for that question.
Thank you, Penny. I'll now turn to Curtis and ask you the same question. What role should the Indiana legislature take in supporting preschool and childcare?
Can I just say what Penny said? Because I mean, it's, again, this is just common sense. I do not understand, actually, I am just going to say what Penny said, and I'm going to tell a story real quick, because when Cora was 3 years old, it was in the middle of the pandemic, and we had her going to preschool. It was as much as our mortgage. So when I tell my coworkers at the brewery that, they immediately say, "Oh, well, I'm never having kids," But we ran through the McDonald's drive-thru one day, and there in the drive-thru was one of our favorite teachers from her preschool. And she informed us that she left the preschool because it was ran by a corporate entity out of some other state. And that, yes, her pay was only $10.50 an hour. She wasn't able to make her bills. And that at McDonald's, the minimum wage is $15 an hour. So that's a perfect example of what Penny's talking about. And want to talk about creating jobs. You want to talk about, educating people and, getting great workforce development. Like, this is a great conduit to that. And what Penny said.
Curtis, thank you very much for that. And you will now take the next question first. Do you feel the State House currently represents all Hoosiers proportionately? Why or why not? And what, if any, action should be taken?
Well, apparently you guys wrote this question for me too, because this is what my campaign is all about. No, the State House does not represent individual Hoosiers. It does not it does between gerrymandering, where the politicians are allowed to draw their own districts. So they're literally choosing their own voters, to the influence of big money in politics. At the end of the day, our democracy should not be bought and paid for by corporations, the wealthy, or special interest groups. But unfortunately, you've got to raise a massive amount of money to be competitive, right? Again, my competitor raised $97,000 2 years ago, and he was unopposed. Why else would you need to raise $97,000 for an unopposed election? You're going to win. It's because he's bought off. Let's be real. You know, it's just, it lights me up. It really does, because Hoosiers should, you know, a state representative should be representing the people in their district. They should be helping Hoosier lives. They should, you know, if I get elected and I can help at least one other person, I've done my job. I don't want to stop there, of course, but I'm getting into it for that reason. And I can't imagine, for as much personal sacrifice that it takes to run a campaign, being away from my family, you know, not being able to put my daughter to bed, just to be paid off by some out-of-state corporation. Screw that. No.
Curtis, thank you for your very passionate response. Penny, I'll turn to you now. Do you feel the State House currently represents all Hoosiers proportionately? Why or why not? And what, if any, action should be taken?
I agree with Curtis on the gerrymandering. When we look at issues related to, say, a federal election, close to 45% of voting Hoosiers will vote on a Democratic ticket. Yet we do not have 45% of our state legislature being Democratic. That's due to gerrymandering. I'm proud as a Monroe County Commissioner to have been the first local government that appointed a bipartisan committee to redraw our county district lines. We had 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, and it went very smoothly. And we were very, very pleased. We took their entire recommendation. Also, women are not proportionally represented in our state government. We make up 54% of the voting public. We should be in the state legislature with 54% of the seats. And we're not even, I don't think, at 30% at this point. We have never had a female governor in Indiana. We have had only 3 lieutenant governors, female lieutenant governors. We have never had a US senator from Indiana that's a female. So no, we're not represented fairly, but we also have to look at some of the racial inequalities that exist. When we look at the face of Hoosiers in Indiana, what we see in the State House doesn't look like the rest of us.
Penny, thank you very much for that response. And I will ask you to answer the next question first. What role does the state legislature have in combating homelessness and underlying factors that contribute to it?
This is a really, really complicated situation here. When we go out and work with our homeless population, and I've been out and talked with people here in this area, a lot of them suffer from mental illness and or substance use disorders. I've already said that I think we need to greatly, greatly expand our treatment for people with substance use disorders and or mental illness. Too often we see them ending up incarcerated, and that's not the way we provide treatment. In Monroe County, where I reside, we have used some of our American Rescue Plan Act money to create an endowed fund with our local community foundation to actually address homelessness. And so we're looking at things that how that might be done. We are starting with a program called Built for Zero, and where you take a segment of the homeless population and try to get to 0 members of that subgroup to a homeless, so that they're all housed. And we're just getting started on that. It's a new program. It's the first time it's been tried in Indiana, and I'm very proud of that. But I also have been working with others on affordable housing, what that means. And there's, wow, it's too big of a question to answer in 90 seconds. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think you've given us a good piece of information where you stand on that. And Curtis, I would turn to you now with that same question. What role does the state legislature have combating homelessness and underlying factors that contribute to it?
Penny, I'm going to extend your statement by 90 more seconds because you're right. This is a lot to pack into just a minute and a half. From my time working on the ambulance here in Bloomington, I got the chance to meet, interact with, and treat many of our local unhoused population. I would say that going off of what Penny just said, mental health and access to those resources is paramount. The fact of the matter is, whether you're unhoused or not, getting into a licensed therapist in this state it takes forever. And it is such a convoluted system to get access to a therapist. With that being said, there are two other segments that I see that I saw a lot while working on the ambulance, and that was the result of the opioid epidemic, and also the result of PTSD from military service, specifically those veterans that are older. These PTSD was not something that was really discussed back, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and it's something that there's much more research being done on now. I would move to help with both of those things, to legalize cannabis in Indiana, because there's no reason why pharmaceutical companies were able to, I know I'm out of time, I'm very sorry, but hopefully that type of question will come up soon and I'll clarify.
Okay, well, Curtis, this question that I just asked both of you kind of feeds into the next question, which is what policy changes, if any, would you support to address the accessibility and affordability of physical and mental health care?
Do I get to go first?
Yes, you do. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Okay, so number one, my wife is a licensed mental health counselor. She obtained her master's from IU, and she's actually one of the reasons why I got involved with CASA. And service providers are few and far between, whether that be within the school-based or at-home based. We need to, there was a public safety forgiveness loan program for her profession that was put in by the federal government, but it was a shamble and she had no access to it. Essentially, over the course of like 6 years, if you stayed with a nonprofit in a kind of like what Penny was saying earlier, like in a rural area or in your community, that's what we need to focus on. We need to get people into this profession because as my wife will tell you, she went to school and got an enormous amount of student loan debt to get her master's degree just to get out of school and only make $45,000 a year. She can't pay off her loans, and it's like mixing oil and water. It just does not work. So we have to funnel in more folks who are passionate about mental health care and helping other people and training them and keeping them in Indiana and helping them live great lives with their family.
Thank you, Curtis. Penny, now I will turn to you with the same question. What policy changes, if any, would you support to address the accessibility and affordability of physical and mental health care?
Oh, physical health care too. Okay, this is a lot. First of all, we need to expand telehealth, especially in our rural areas, which again creates that demand or the need for good broadband. But we need to incentivize healthcare workers, whether it's mental health or physical health, to stay in Indiana. I think some of the loan forgiveness program that I was talking about earlier is critical. Curtis has given a good example with his own wife here. We need reasons for people to stay here. I don't know what the current numbers are, but as of a few years ago, we were only graduating 2 psychiatrists per year out of the IU Med system with their residency programs. We need to expand that. IU has one of the largest medical schools in the whole country. And so I think we should be doing a lot better with that. We also, if we talk about mental health, we need to have programs and policies. And again, we can start this in the schools that look to reduce stigma so that people are more willing to talk about what's going on. People are more willing to seek help. And we need to have that early intervention occurring much, much earlier.
Thank you, Penny. And now this is going to be the last question of the forum. So you guys will be able to breathe a sigh of relief. Yes. And Penny, I'll ask you to answer first. How will you stay informed about the priorities of all your constituents and keep them informed about important issues?
Well, first of all, I will always attend the League of Women Voters legislative updates. Okay, we need to be doing that.
Thank you.
I live in my community. I have lived in the same house for 29 years. I think people know where to find me, how to find me. I've been doing educational advocacy for special needs kids, for example, for 25 years. And I felt like there were days that my name and phone number were written on some bathroom wall because people called so often. I will maintain all the relationships I have, and I will hold regular constituent meetings, but I also will read my emails, read the mail that comes in. I will answer what, the calls I get, basically. And I have a record of doing that as a county commissioner. I've been out there. I also believe in public service. I think it was last Friday, my campaign manager and I were out at Hoosier Hills Food Bank helping to distribute food. I've done that 4 different times this summer, I think it was. I attend different functions. I have been down to here in Bloomington Seminary Park and talked with people who are some of the unhoused homeless to hear what their concerns are. And so I just hope people will stay connected with me as much as they have been in the past, but I pledge to stay connected within my community.
Thank you, Penny. Now, Curtis, I will turn to you with the same question. How will you stay informed about the priorities of all your constituents and keep them informed about important issues?
I'll actually represent, period. I mean, I'll participate in forums. My opponent has refused to participate in a single forum this entire election, including the League of Women Voters in Vigo County, his own county of residence. You have to be responsive to your constituents. And unfortunately, what's happened in this district, in District 46, is that since 2010, since my opponent's been in office, I'm going door to door and I have people say, well, who is that guy? They don't know who he is. Or they say, oh, well, he shot a good basketball goal one year or something. I mean, but they've lost faith in the system. And that's what hurts me the most. Constituents have actually lost faith in their state representatives and their state government. And if he had been going door to door, or if he were to participate in forums, he would know that. And that's really unfortunate. It really is, because I just want to be able to make a difference. And I want to be able to help Hoosiers. And, from reading emails, responding to text messages, participating in community events, it sickens me that literally just doing that much more than what my opponent's doing would be more than what he's been doing, and constituents would actually have more faith in their government.
Thank you very much, Curtis. Now I'm going to ask each of you to take 1 minute to give your closing statement, and we will begin with Curtis.
I was just having fun, and we're already ending it. Listen, I tell everyone that I meet that I'm not quite left, I'm not quite right, I'm right down the middle, and I feel like the nationwide politics are trying to make us feel so polarized, but I feel like the majority of Indiana Hoosier families just are not that way. We We care about things in our community. We care about issues that affect our kids and our neighborhoods and our fire departments and our healthcare and our ambulance services. You know, my ask for whoever's watching this is very simple. Just trust me with your vote. Send me to Indianapolis for 2 years. And if you're not happy with the work that I do, then fire me. Fire me in 2024, because that's what this office should be. This office should be not one where no one runs for 6 years and someone just automatically gets the job year after year after year. No, if you're not happy with the work that I do for you and your family, then fire me.
Curtis, thank you very much. Penny, you may have 1 minute to give your closing statement.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody who's sponsoring tonight's forum, and thank you to everyone who's shown up to listen to us. I think it's incumbent on any candidate, including my opponent, who wants to represent you, to show up and answer your questions. So as you think about how you'll mark your ballot, please think about some of the legislation I've already helped pass, the impact I've had on Monroe County as a county commissioner, the fact that I'm a fighter, someone who doesn't give up, and that I'll do my best to fully represent all of District 62 when I'm in Indianapolis. That includes people who didn't vote for me. I'll be there to represent everyone here. Like tonight, I'll show up, I'll do the hard work, I'll do my homework, and I'll even turn in my assignments. And finally, I want to say it would be an honor to serve District 62 as your state representative. So I'm Penny Githens, and I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
I want to thank both Curtis and Penny for participating in tonight's forum. We know that it's hard work. It's very labor intensive. Being a candidate, hitting the road, knocking on doors, answering phone calls, sending out mailers. And so we appreciate that you took the time tonight to participate. On behalf of all the sponsors, I want to thank you for allowing us to get to know you and your positions on important community issues. I also want to thank CATS for recording this forum, and it will be available for viewing by other individuals who want to be informed voters. Remember, everyone, that your vote is your voice. Be prepared to vote. Register, and even if you think you are already registered, make sure to check your registration before October 11th. Mistakes are occasionally made, and someone may be inadvertently dropped from the rolls, and you don't want that to happen to you. Plan how you will vote, whether it's early in person, absentee by mail, or in person on Election Day, November the 8th. Know your candidates. Check out Vote 411 to learn candidate positions on important topics in their own words. I want to wish everyone a good evening and good luck to the candidates. And we look forward to learning more about the elections on November 8th and being active participants in that opportunity to vote. Thank you again.